Where are my keys? I had them just a minute ago, I put them down, and I have no idea where they are. Not in this pocket, not in this pocket, not back here. If Jazzy, our puppy, was here, well, I could try and blame it on her. She picked up my keys and she took them somewhere and she hid them. I used to do that with our kids. I used to think they were the ones that took my keys. Now they're grown up and they're married and they have kids of their own. Well, now they lose their own things and they spend their own time trying to find the things that they've misplaced. I just can't for the life of me think of where I put my keys. Not back here, and they're not under there, and I don't see them down here at all. I just don't know. Found them. Here they are, right where I put them, right in front of me. Does that ever happen to you? I'm just going to take these and put them down over here, and hopefully I'll remember exactly where I put them. Apparently, I'm not alone when it comes to misplacing things. I read an article not that long ago that says we spend 6 months over the course of our lives searching for lost things. The article came out in the New Yorker, and it was written by Catherine Schultz, and she writes about 2 forms of loss. There's grief, and then there's the misplacement of everyday objects. Regarding the latter, it appears that we have a tendency to lose items on a daily basis, and we spend half a year over the course of our lifetimes searching for them. There's passwords, there's passports, there's umbrellas, there's scarves, there's earrings, there's earbuds, there's hearing aids, there's glasses, there's musical instruments, there's that letter that you meant to answer, or that check that you were going to cash. There's permission slips for your daughter's field trip. Or there's that can of paint that you knew someday you were going to need. And so you put it in exactly that place where you would never forget it. Do you think you can find it now? The time has finally come for you to do that patch-up job. And do you think you can find it? Not on your life. You have no idea where you put it, and you've searched high and low. You've cleared out shelves, and you're still not able to find where that can of paint disappeared to. You know, the range of things that we lose and the readiness with which we do so are staggering. Data from one insurance company survey suggests that the average person misplaces up to 9 objects a day, which means that by the time that we turn 60, well, we have lost up to 200,000 items. These figures may seem preposterous, don't they? Until you reflect on all the times that you holler up the stairs to ask your spouse or your partner if they have seen your jacket, or all the time that you've spent looking under the couch cushions for that pen that you were just using, or the more obvious thing is the remote control. There's always that flurry of activity when you get down or when you reach the front door and you're trying to find your child's backpack, or you too are like me, and you're trying to find your car keys. Granted, you'll get many of those items back, but we'll never recover the time that we've spent looking for those items. Just think about this. In the course of your life, you'll spend roughly 6 solid months looking for things that you've misplaced. Multiply that out by 37.5 million people, and that equates to Canadians collectively spending roughly 225 million months looking for lost items, or 18,750,000 years looking for lost things. Wow. That does remind me of a story in the Bible, searching for something. And in this case, searching for a someone. It goes like this, and if you have your Bibles, you can take them and open them to Matthew chapter 2. I'm going to read out of the New Living Translation, Matthew chapter 2, starting in verse 1. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law, and he asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote." And this is coming out of Micah chapter 5. "And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah. For a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd for my people Israel." Remember, tiny, insignificant Bethlehem. Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me, so that I can go and worship him too." After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. Now, these men were called wise men, not wise guys, wise men. They were pretty smart. They had been following a star. Now, we think of them as astrologers, but they were not just your normal students of the stars. They were known as astrologers. They were also known as dream interpreters. These wealthy priests would have traveled with an entourage for protection as officials from the east. Now, we say that there were three of them because there were three gifts that are mentioned in the story that I just read. But that's very unlikely. There is every reason to believe that men of this class would not travel that distance as only three, but there would be many more in the group. How many exactly? Well, we're not told. We don't know. Now, the Greek word magos is taken from the Mede language and means spiritual advisors or simply priests. So, you can sort of expand our idea of astrologers even further. They were appointed by Darius over the state religion as priests of Persia, which is modern-day Iran. Now, just keep that in mind. And they served as official advisors to the king. By the time of Jesus' birth, Persia had been conquered and was being governed by successors to Alexander the Great. It's possible these magos came from the Mesopotamian region of Seleucia. You can read more about this in Daniel chapter 2 or in Daniel chapter 5, verse 11, where the prophet Daniel is given the title of chief of the Magio or Magi. It's probable that these magos were descendants of those who had been taught by Daniel himself. And because of his prophecy of the Messiah being cut off, which you can read more about in Daniel chapter 9, they may have been able to decipher the date of Jesus' birth along with the interpretation of his star rising. These wise men were also extremely wealthy. They presented gifts that totaled a great sum of money. They were not tiny little presents that we often may see depicted. No, they were not tiny little gifts wrapped neatly in little boxes with bows, but rather these were treasure chests that were full of financial wealth. Although we're not given the monetary value of each type of gift, we know that frankincense and myrrh were extremely costly. These gifts would have financed Joseph and Mary and Jesus' exodus to Egypt and supplied their living expenses for a number of years, even after returning to Israel. Gold is an often used symbol of the deity of Christ. Frankincense points to his perfect life of holiness, excellence, and devotion. Myrrh was an embalming spice, which speaks to us of the suffering love of Jesus that would lead him to the death on the cross. You know, recently the world has been mesmerized, especially in these last few days, by a star event, haven't we? It's known as the Great Conjunction 2020, or also known as the Christmas star. Did you see it? Well, here where I live, it was extremely cloudy. It was so cloudy that we weren't able to see anything from the ground or even through binoculars. But photos capturing the event were pretty spectacular. We call it a Great Conjunction because to ancient sky watchers, these were the two slowest moving planets in the sky. Jupiter takes nearly 12 years to describe a full circle in the heavens, while Saturn takes about 29 and a half years to make one full trip around the sun. It's at this time in this orbit that Jupiter and Saturn became close enough in the night sky that they nearly appear as one planet. I mean, they really are separated by the tiniest of margins. So depending on who you read, it has either been about 400 years or 800 years since the last conjunction. Just for your information, I missed the last one. And I'll probably miss the next one. The last conjunction is said to have occurred on July the 16th of 1623. And the one before that, March the 5th of 1226. You know, some have suggested this holiday season that these two planets might be a replica of the legendary Star of Bethlehem. Actually, one of the more popular theories for the Christmas star was a series of conjunctions between Jupiter and Saturn all the way back in 7 BC. It's said that in that year, Jupiter and Saturn met not once, but 3 times. They met in May, in September, and then again in December. Now, the first conjunction is said to have happened on May the 29th, and it was visible in the east before sunrise. Presumably, that conjunction started the Magi on their way to Bethlehem from the far east. The middle conjunction that is recorded on September the 30th may have strengthened their resolve in the purpose of their journey, while the third and final conjunction, which is believed to have happened on December the 5th, occurred just as they arrived in Judea to meet with King Herod, who sent them on to Bethlehem to go and search diligently for the young child. I don't know about you, but I find all of that quite fascinating. A conjunction means an uninflected linguistic form that joins together sentences, clauses, phrases, or words. Some common conjunctions are words like and, or but, or the word although. And a conjunction also means, of course, a configuration in which two celestial bodies have their least apparent separation. You know, in thinking about all of that, there was a great conjunction in Bethlehem in the house where Jesus was with Joseph and Mary. Think about this. There was the joining of race. Iran met Israel. There was the joining of social class. Wealth met poverty. There was the joining of generations. Child met grown men. And there was the joining of spiritual need. Seekers met the Savior. Hearts were united, and worship resulted. Can I just ask, have you joined your heart to the Christ child? My prayer for you is that 2020 would be the year of your great spiritual conjunction. That this would be a time when you find the baby that was born some 2,000 years ago, who came as the Savior of the world then, and who is the Savior of our world now. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 13, we read these words, "If you look for me with your whole heart, you will find me. If you search for me or look for me with all your heart, you will find me. May I just say to you that wise men and women still search for the Savior. My prayer is that you will search for him with all your heart, for you will find him. I pray that this would be the greatest Christmas season that you've ever experienced. Let's take a moment and pray together. Dear Jesus, we thank you that your word tells us that if we search for you with our whole heart, we will find you. And Father, I pray that for those of us who have found you, I pray that we would let your light so shine so brightly through us that we would lead people to the Savior, to you yourself, to you, Lord Jesus, that they would discover that the Savior who came some 2,000 years ago is the same Savior today, and that we need you, and that you are our hope in these days. How we thank you for your word, how we thank you for your faithfulness, how we thank you that we can always count on you. For I pray all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I trust that you've had a wonderful Christmas season. Thank you so much for watching this video. Look forward to seeing you again next time. Please stay safe, take care, and stay healthy. God bless. See you again. Bye for now.